Look around you. You live in a nation with immense power, immense wealth, and immense opportunity. Yet you are running faster just to stay in the same place. Your savings barely keep up with the soaring cost of groceries. Your parents' generation could buy a home. Your generation struggles to afford rent. Now answer this simple, critical question honestly. Why did the wealthiest people you know get exponentially richer after 2008, after 2020, and after every major crisis the system faced? This is not the result of superior investing. This is the result of policy. This is the truth about the central banks and the most sophisticated financial deception ever deployed on the English-speaking world. This is the unclassified step-by-step manual for how your Federal Reserve, your Bank of England, and their global partners used a secret protocol, Quantitative Easing, or QE, to silently create a new aristocracy of billionaires while pushing the working and middle classes toward insolvency. It is the greatest financial trick ever played, and the shocking part is that they did it in plain sight, disguised as a public service. The year 2008 was a moment of truth. The financial system was broken, collapsing under the weight of reckless banking. The powerful institutions in London and Washington, D.C. faced a choice. Let the market cleanse itself and punish the bankers, or protect the system and those who controlled it at all costs. They chose the latter, but the old tools, like lowering interest rates, were exhausted. They needed a new, unlimited weapon to inject liquidity. They invented quantitative easing. Now reflect on this brutal historical pattern. Throughout history, when empires needed to finance ruinous spending, wars, bailouts, or endless public works, they resorted to one trick: debasing the currency. In the 3rd century, Roman emperors like Gallienus reduced the silver content of the denarius from nearly pure metal to less than 5%. They did this to pay the legions and finance their excesses. The government pretended the coin was still real, but its value was a lie. The common Roman, who stored their wealth in those coins, was silently taxed into destitution. This is the ancient, destructive rhythm of debasement. Fast forward to the early 20th century. When the great powers realized the colossal cost of World War I, they abandoned the gold standard. They financed the bloodiest conflict in history not with gold, but with unprecedented levels of debt, money printing, and government bonds. The people of the British Empire and the German Reich paid for the war not just with their sons, but with the immediate brutal collapse of their currency's purchasing power. This is the historical echo of financial deceit. Quantitative easing is simply the 21st century digital evolution of debasing the currency to finance power and enrich an elite class. Instead of melting silver coins or printing paper notes to buy ammunition, the central banks print digital money, trillions of keystrokes, to buy long-term government debt and toxic financial assets. But who are they buying these assets from? Not you. This brings us to the core QE blueprint, the direct vertical pipeline that transferred trillions upward. Step 1. The asset purchase illusion. The central bank doesn't buy assets from the average citizen or the Main Street business. They purchase assets, mainly government bonds and mortgage-backed securities, exclusively from the large, pre-approved commercial banks and institutional investors on Wall Street and in the City of London. They credit the accounts of these banks with newly created central bank reserves. The money is literally born in the process of a transaction with the wealthiest institutions. This is not a market transaction, it is a gift. Step 2. The inflationary tax disguise. When the central bank hands fresh, risk-free capital to the financial sector, these institutions do one thing: they chase assets. They buy up corporate stock, they flood real estate markets, and they invest in high-yield debt. This action inflates the price of every asset owned by the already wealthy. That is asset inflation. Simultaneously, the vast influx of new money into the system relentlessly climbs, leading to price inflation in the basic basket of goods, fuel, electricity, and groceries, the things the working and middle class must buy. This is the ultimate financial trick, a tax so stealthy, so brilliantly disguised, that the average person blames corporate greed or foreign conflicts. They do not blame the central bank, which is the true architect of currency debasement. They are forcing you to pay for their policy failures and national deficits through the erosion of your wealth. When the national debt, now measured in trillions, much of it owned by the central bank itself, loses 10% of its real value due to inflation, the government has just effectively wiped 10% off the real cost of its debt. Who paid the 10%? You did, at the grocery store. Step 3. The moral hazard trap. Once the system knows the central bank is committed to unlimited QE, they realize they have an unlimited safety net. They are incentivized to take on massive, irresponsible risks because they know that if their bets fail, the central bank will simply roll out another, larger QE program, another bailout disguised as liquidity injection. This weaponized, too-big-to-fail doctrine ensures that profits are privatized for the few and losses are socialized, paid for by you, the public, through perpetual currency weakness. The QE blueprint has succeeded in creating an unprecedented class of financial oligarchs, but its next chapter is one of inevitable national reckoning. The addiction to easy money has brought the system to the brink, and every serious analysis of history demands we confront the consequences. The historical pattern is an unbreakable law. No empire, no nation, no system has ever escaped the reckoning that follows the sustained debasement of its currency and the explosion of its national debt. The QE blueprint is not a solution. It is merely a time machine, transporting today's financial problems into tomorrow's collapse. The central banks, particularly in the US and the UK, are addicted to the drug of QE because the political system is addicted to the easy money that avoids hard choices. But like all powerful drugs, the addiction guarantees a fatal overdose for the system. For years, the political class has promised that the trillions in debt could be serviced, that inflation was temporary, and that the system was stable. But history teaches us that confidence is the only real foundation of a currency. The moment the market realizes that the central bank's only tool is more printing, more debasement, the national currency faces a terminal crisis of faith. When this moment arrives, the nation will effectively be bankrupt in the only way that matters. Its promises will be worth nothing, and the interest on the debt will force either a hyperinflationary spiral or draconian collapse. The most potent lesson we can learn from every financial collapse, from the fall of Rome to the hyperinflation in Weimar Germany, is that the survivors were not the ones who trusted the system. They were the ones who doubted it first. They realized that money, once untethered from reality, becomes a tool of manipulation. So how do you protect yourself from a blueprint designed to make you poor while keeping the financial elites rich? First, you must abandon the illusion of permanence. Never assume that the value of your currency or the stability of the institutions around you is permanent. The collapse of financial systems happens slowly, then suddenly, as trust breaks down. Your first defense is knowledge, realizing that inflation is not an accident, it is policy. Second, re-engineer your concept of wealth. Real wealth is not paper. It is not digits on a screen that can be diluted by a central bank's keystroke. Real wealth is resilience and productive capacity. It is assets that hold value across cycles. Land, productive businesses, certain commodities, and perhaps most critically, skills that generate income regardless of the government's financial gymnastics. The baker who can still supply bread, the farmer who can feed a community, the tradesperson who can repair essential tools. These are the people who not only survive economic collapses, but often rise during them. When paper money fails, production never does. Your second defense is owning tangible value that cannot be printed by a central bank. Third, adopt a mindset of financial resistance. Financial education is resistance. Economic history is a weapon. If you know the tricks, you are harder to manipulate. Question every stimulus package, every bailout, and every technical explanation about liquidity. When governments announce a new program, always ask, who profits first and who will pay for it later? The central banks have written the QE blueprint, but they cannot force you to remain blind to its mechanisms. This is the financial battle of your generation. It is a war fought not with bullets, but with digits, policy, and carefully crafted narratives. The system exists to protect itself, not you. The cycle will repeat. Debt builds, leaders deny, crises erupt, and societies reset. Your only choice is whether you are prepared to be an active survivor of the reset, holding real value, or a passive victim left with the debris of broken promises. The knowledge you have gained is the only true financial freedom history allows.